Imagine living in a place like Pakistan where women can't receive an education. Since women in the United States are able to receive an education, this might be hard for us to imagine. If that's the case, then why should we consider donating to the Malala Fund, a nonprofit organization that advocates for girls' leadership in education? According to VR for Good, the Malala Fund is just one of many nonprofits that is paired with virtual reality to connect donors to the cause they're curious about donating to. When people don't understand the cause or what their donations are being used for, they tend not to donate to nonprofit organizations. For this reason, nonprofits should pair with virtual reality in order to increase their donations. This morning I will be addressing the lack of sufficient funds to nonprofit organizations, explaining how virtual reality can be used to increase the pro-social behavior of helping others, and then speaking about nonprofits that have benefited from the increase in pro-social behavior that virtual reality provides. To begin, there is a lack of sufficient donations being received by nonprofit organizations. In response to a question of the month presented by GuideStar, a website dedicated to informing the general public about nonprofits, 46% of readers who are connected to a nonprofit said that the greatest challenge that their organization faces is finding the money to accomplish their mission. Dr. Rashani Shea of the Hawaii Wellness Institute goes on to detail, quote, "All other challenges pale in comparison to the need for funding to keep our doors open and to accomplish our mission," end quote. According to an article posted by Forbes, many organizations find it challenging to emotionally connect with potential donors through traditional video outreach campaigns, so they need to find an innovative way to connect. The article also states that only 53% of video viewers showed brand recall of the charity, so both of these lead to the necessity of increasing donations and connecting with viewers. To understand how virtual reality can combat the lack of sufficient donations to nonprofit organizations, we must first understand that virtual reality increases the pro-social behavior of helping others. At the Stanford University Virtual Human Interaction Lab, a study was done by Robin Rosenberg and colleagues to discover whether virtual reality would encourage pro-social behavior. This was completed through a virtual reality experience and then a measure of physical reaction to a situation. The study focused on 60 participants, 30 male and 30 female, and split them into experiencing two different scenarios. In both scenarios, participants were told that there had just been an earthquake in the virtual city. The first set of participants were told that they had the ability to fly, therefore making them superheroes. The superheroes were given the task of finding a young diabetic child who was in need of life-saving insulin immediately. The second set of participants were told that they were flying around on a helicopter to see the city following the earthquake. After the time in the virtual reality experiences, each participant was instructed to sit while the experimenter put away the equipment. The experimenter then accidentally knocked over a cup of 15 pens sitting on the table near the participant and asked each participant for help. They waited 5 seconds before picking any pens up, and then only picked up one pen at a time, giving the participant even more opportunity to help. 6 people did not help at all of whom were in the helicopter experience. Those who were superheroes were found to help quicker, and they were found to pick up more pens than those who were in the helicopter. Another example of virtual reality increasing pro-social behavior, specifically helping others, comes from a study conducted at Georgia University. Researchers found the virtual reality environment to be the most efficient since they could also use nonverbal cues to display their message. One specific study used student populations of 2 large universities in the Midwest and in the South. The participants were placed in a forest and asked to look around so they could see the trees and hear the birds chirping. They then looked down and saw that they were holding a chainsaw, which they also felt they were holding through vibrations. They were instructed to move the device back and forth as if cutting down the tree for 2 minutes. After those 2 minutes, the participants saw and heard the tree fall down, and the forest went silent to emphasize the damage that had been done. There was also a control group who only got to watch the tree being cut down. To measure the effectiveness after the experiences, the participants were asked to sit and fill out an information sheet. The experimenter leaned across the table and knocked over a cup of water with a clipboard, and then asked each participant for help. They handed the participant a pre-counted stack of napkins before leaving the room. After 2 minutes, the participant was dismissed, and the experimenter counted how many napkins remained. The study found that those who had the virtual reality experience and saw the negative consequence of paper consumption used 20% less napkins compared to those who had just read or saw the same consequence. Now that we understand that virtual reality encourages participants to help others, we'll look at specific examples of nonprofit organizations that have paired with virtual reality in order to increase donations. The first nonprofit is Alzheimer's Research UK, who developed a virtual reality experience called A Walk Through Dementia. According to the A Walk Through Dementia website and a Washington Post article written by Stephen Overly, A Walk Through Dementia is a virtual reality experience that uses Google Cardboard, virtual reality goggles developed through Google, to place participants in the shoes of someone with dementia. The experience uses stories that were given to the organization by those diagnosed with different forms of dementia. The nonprofit wants users to understand that there is much more to dementia than just memory loss. A Walk Through Dementia contains 3 different scenarios: the supermarket, on the road, and at home, but today I'll focus on the supermarket simulation. Going to the supermarket seems like an easy task for most, but for those with dementia, it can be much harder. To quote the A Walk Through Dementia website, going to the supermarket requires planning, decision-making, concentration, spatial navigation, and calculation. An article in the Washington Post sums up the simulation by saying that the participant is placed in the store to buy a few items, but throughout the experience, they forget what they're there to be buying, they can't seem to count out the correct amount of money to pay with, and they become very disoriented. A Walk Through Dementia then discusses several things that may have occurred during the simulation, such as struggling to read the shopping list, and goes on to provide details about experiences that those with dementia have in the store. There's a direct link on the website to the Alzheimer's Research UK website, as well as a direct link to donate to the nonprofit as well. Due to the success of this project, funding was increased to the Alzheimer's Research UK organization, and more people have donated to the cause as well. The second example is an education nonprofit, Pencils of Promise. According to their website, Pencils of Promise is a nonprofit that believes that everyone deserves access to a quality education. They use donations to build new schools in developing countries such as Ghana, Guatemala, and Laos. A Washington Post newspaper article details that in 2015, Pencils of Promise attended a Wall Street gala and transported a room of wealthy donors to a schoolhouse in Ghana. The nonprofit put together a 16-foot wide replica of a classroom for donors to walk through and provided virtual reality goggles to show a 2-minute video that also placed their mind in the classroom. According to the VR Scout website, the video showed users the learning environment prior to a Pencils of Promise school, and typically those environments were unsafe. The video then shows the impact of the new school and how it can help children, parents, and the community. That night, the organization raised more than $2 million, and the video has reached 8 million people since. The director of marketing, Natalie Evil, says that usually those who donate to Pencils of Promise have never been to the developing countries where the nonprofit works, so the virtual reality allows donors to connect with the experience. Since the virtual reality allows users to see the quality of education before and after Pencils of Promise, they're able to see that their donations have a direct effect on someone else, and therefore they are more willing to donate due to the encouragement of pro-social behavior and seeing a before and after view. Many people may be thinking that virtual reality goggles are too expensive. While some sets are more expensive than others, there are also sets that aren't expensive at all. Google Cardboard is only $15. I have a set that I've been using to be immersed in virtual reality experiences, such as a Walk Through Dementia, as well as to play games, and they're of good quality for a cheap price. It's also very possible that as more and more nonprofits develop connections with virtual reality, and virtual reality is being used more in general, the prices will drop on the more expensive sets. In the case of Vanessa Chase Lockshin, a virtual reality experience created through the Starkey Hearing Foundation brought her to tears. According to the storytelling nonprofit website, while sitting in former President Clinton's New York office, Lockshin got to hear firsthand about the impact of nonprofit work in East Africa. Through the experience, Lockshin was able to go to Nairobi and able to experience what she calls an unforgettable moment. She was able to witness the moment when hearing aids were first switched on for a young Kenyan girl who could now hear for the first time. Right after, Lockshin was able to see the joy that this moment brought to her family. Lockshin then went on to explain, quote, "From this moment I truly felt an emotional connection to the Foundation's work in Kenya and Tanzania and appreciated the reality of these everyday problems that are so often looked over in favor of more dramatic conflict," end quote. According to Forbes, another virtual reality experience, Clouds Over Sidra, measured the amount of donations that were being received before and after the virtual reality experience and found that after the experience, 1 of 6 people were donating, which was double the amount from without the experience. There have been so many successes with virtual reality and nonprofit pairings, and more nonprofits have a high chance of seeing an increase in donations due to virtual reality as well. After hearing information about virtual reality and nonprofit organizations, the first step is to get connected. Many successful nonprofits that are paired with virtual reality can be found on the VR for Good website. Nonprofits must find a filmmaker in order to develop their virtual reality experiences. Use true stories such as how a Walk Through Dementia used stories from those with dementia. It may take some time, but when the nonprofit has created an immersive virtual reality experience that will allow participants to connect to their mission, funds will increase just as they did for Alzheimer's Research UK and Pencils of Promise. This morning we have discussed virtual reality alongside nonprofit organizations. There is a lack of sufficient donations being received by nonprofits, but virtual reality encourages the pro-social behavior such as helping others, and nonprofits that have paired with virtual reality have already proven successful.